This week on the Fan Batard Show, I talk about how I lost in March Sadness.
Howdy, you fan Levitardians. Nasty Nate here. The magical run has come to an end.
I wanted to win.
It had to end somewhere, right? Elite Eight. I advanced. Shout out to Tyler in the Sweet 16. He made a video easiest victory for me, but I thought he was creative. When I first saw it, I was actually worried, like, wow, really creative. He had a wolf costume and named himself Renegade Randy, and then proceeded to have his video be about, the worst part of the life is pretending that the cones are for real. Your one mistake, though, is the Renegades and no Battlecore team has ever gone back-to-back. You called the Renegades the back-to-back champions. You don't know high, bro. If you're going to come at the highlight king, you best know your highlight, Tyler. That cost you, and that's why I smoked him. But then, round 2, Elite 8, going up against Beep Count, I lost. I always knew it was going to be a challenge to defeat anyone from the Lauer After Hours circles.
Well, it's always going to be a tough battle.
They have a ton of supporters. They have the largest fan Twitter accounts. You got Mark with 47,000. You have Will with like 138,000, something like that. So it was always going to be a challenge to defeat those guys because of the backing. Like, if I was going to win, I would have to make a really good video.
What? Why did it have to happen to me? I made a very good video.
To beat him, because I would need people who just follow the Twitter account to see it and overwhelmingly pick me, because they were always going to support Beep. Lauer After Hours folks were never going to vote for me, no matter whatever. It didn't matter the video I made. I had to overcome that. And I couldn't overcome it. My video was not good enough.
It's cyclone.
There were a few things called into question.
Oh, the bots. Oh, the bots.
Ultimately, like, whether or not bots were purchased at some point,
Bot count.
like, Beep would have still won.
Beep bop, beep bop. Beep bop, beep bop, bots. Beep, beep bop, bots.
I will say this, though. If someone from the Lauer After circles did, in fact, buy bots from the time frame, that was very suspicious. Unlike any other time frame in the voting competition, if you bought bots, that really sucks.
Come on, tell them about the bots.
Because that means you never entered into the competition with
Hashtag beep bop bots.
a fair shake.
The cyclone. So good. We'll always have that Mike Ryan endorsement.
You always win. Like, you have, like, you clearly know Lauer After Hours, all these people, with the way this competition is set up, you have the advantage. It's Twitter polls on Twitter. You guys have the largest following. Like, if someone doesn't win this from Lauer After Hours, Will or Beep at this point, like, it's because someone did cheat. And we'll get to that, because someone out there is buying bots. And I guess the Batard show is sanctioning it. But if someone from Lauer After Hours did buy like 100 bots or whatever to just provide a little extra cushioning, like, I'm just going to say that sucks.
Exhibit A. Here's a screenshot taken at 5:27 of a post that's 6 minutes old. That's a screenshot of the poll. So roughly 520-ish, there's 372 votes, 50-50. We'll just say that's 186 to 186. There could be a wiggle room of a vote or two. Could be 187 to 185.
So here's where I'm going to jump in because I actually got the time wrong. I'm now editing the podcast that I've recorded, and while I'm talking about it, I'm now looking at the actual screenshots, and now I've looked at the screenshots. It was actually 6:05, not 6:11. And I crunched the numbers, and later I'm going to say I don't have a smoking gun. I actually feel I have a pretty good smoking gun that Beep cheated. At 5:54, I texted my wife, Beep just took a big lead. When that happened, I did not screenshot the poll. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. But as you'll see later on in this competition, I did something in the competition that I'm honest about. And I could easily just cover up and hide. No one would be none the wiser. And it would make it look even more compelling that I would have won the competition. Flat out, despite the fact that Beep bought bots, which now I actually feel confident someone did buy bots for them because this is really suspicious. 5:54, I saw the poll. It was 494 votes, and it was 56 to 44. Beep. When before, as you see from the previous one at like 5:20, it was 372, 50-50. Right? So I text that to my wife. She doesn't respond. And then we sit down for dinner, and I'm like, hey, did you see my message? And she's like, no. Oh, Beep just took a lead. And she pulls out her phone and gasps. And I was like, okay, it was just like a 12% lead. Like, having known the polls, I knew it was over. I'm like, why is she gasping? And then she shows me it's 67-33. And she takes a screenshot, and that's 6:05. So within an 11-minute time period, roughly 11, 12 minutes, maybe it's 5:53 when I see the poll and a minute passes when I send the text message because I'm a slow texter. But within an 11-minute time frame, 213 votes come in. That's way, way above the rest of the poll. And you'll hear me say later, I say, now you're going to have to take my word for it. I don't have any screenshots, but it took like over an hour for another 100 votes to come in. Guess what? My wife has screenshots, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, within that 11-minute window, 213 votes come in. How many of those were for Beep in that 11-minute window? 92.4% of them, 197 of those votes were for Beep. And now here's, if they see this, here's their pushback. Well, Mark and Christy retweeted a bunch of stuff. They got panicked because Mike Ryan in hashtag clone cartel, and that's what got me back into the race. And they could say, yeah, but we put together the Lauer After Hours power, and we retweeted a bunch, and that got a bunch more impressions and clicks. And of course, these people clicking it are going to. But it doesn't add up with the time frame, because from the very start, both Mark and Christy already tweeted and quoted, both of them. Well, Mark retweeted what Christy did, but they both put out calls to vote for Beep, and that did give them like a 10-12%. I think it maybe got into like low 60s to 40 lead. I don't have screenshots of that, so it did work. They were getting an advantage. And then again, the Mike Ryan tweet gave me a teeny minuscule tiny lead. And then they do that, and they could say, well, we just doubled down our efforts. And I'd say, how were they so much more effective? Like, that's wild. Why weren't they that effective the first time you did it? And now I'm supposed to believe that the second time you did it, it was magically like you managed to get within a 10-minute window 200 people and 93%, something that's just not replicated at all over the rest of the time. So another thing to mention, I do have a screenshot of the poll later. at, now I got to pull this up here. At 8:49. So 6:05, there's 707 votes. At 8:49, so you can do the math there, folks. That's 2 hours and 44 minutes later. There must have been so many more votes, and it must have gotten even more out of control. What, with all those retweets and stuff? Nope. Only 111 votes came in those 2 hours. It's like somebody turned off the faucet at 6:05. So, I mean, we'll just stick to that 35. You have that 197 votes within that 11-minute window that are extremely suspect. Like, I feel confident in saying it appears that somebody on Beep's side of things, or through that, there was 200 fake votes within there. I don't know. Were these done by like actual like buying Twitter poll votes? Did someone throw in a couple bucks to get 200 votes? Or do these people just all have enough fake Twitter accounts that they're like, all right, guys, engage our own Twitter bots and everybody sign into your other accounts and vote? I didn't sign into my other accounts and vote on it. I just voted the one time. But if you take that all out, there's 817 votes. If you take out the 300 and something we'll just keep it to within that 35-minute window, and it's 354 to 463. So Beep still wins comfortably. But again, if you take out the suspicious 45-minute window in which it was 86 to 14%, which is still way out of the normal, 57%, 56.6, 57 to 43%. Still, congratulations, a win, but now that it actually seems really obvious that you did something, it just doesn't feel right that you get to advance even though you take the normal votes and you beat me fair and square. That just sucks.
At 6:11, there's 707 votes, and it's now 67-33. That's a big change. So you're telling me in almost 2 hours, 1 hour and 40 minutes, 372 votes come in, and it's 50-50 split. Then from 5:20 to 6:11, so 50 minutes, half the time, yes, exactly half the time, almost the same amount of votes come in, 335 more votes. That's what goes from 372 to 707. And those votes change the vote total to 67-33. That would be 474 votes to 233 votes, roughly. Again, there could be a wiggle room of a few votes here or there. So, in that 50-minute time span of those 335 votes, what would the percentage breakdown have to be to change the vote that much? Well, it turns out that it would be 288 votes for Beep to 47, which is a 86 to 14% advantage towards Beep. No other time. A short time span with a lot of votes predominantly favoring one side that is not replicated for the rest of the time. Because now, 707, I didn't take any other screenshots of it going on, but I can tell you, I still kept checking in, and it took like over another hour for just another 100 votes to come in. And you can see by looking at the end of the poll, there was 1,252 votes total. I'm sorry. I bought bots.
Wait, you bought bots?
I'm sorry. I never meant for it to win the competition.
Oh my gosh. Dude, we were going to play this straight up.
In my mind, I was gonna say, hey, this is suspicious, and if someone said, hey, this is suspicious on your part, I would admit I bought bots. So if Beep has the same suspicious spike, then he bought bots too. But all convoluted reasoning. I meant to only buy 50 bots, and the transaction was rejected because it turns out the place I was buying from was based in Turkey, so my card flagged it, and then he was like, do the transaction again. So I did it again and it went through. And then I get a text message saying, did you try to do this? And I click yes. And it turns out that text message was for the first time I tried to do it. So then the 50 bots, became 2 purchases, although I never got like email for both of those purchases. But that was executed at like 9:47 Pacific time. So let's take out those 100 votes, because if we don't, man, does my argument look even more compelling, because with those 100 votes added in, that's 545 more votes. And what's the advantage? 5149 Beep, and now that's looking really suspicious, but that's not legitimate. So we gotta only look at the 445. The actual total is 1,152. And that would be instead of 60-40, it'd be a 65-35 Beep advantage. So what was the rest of the voting look like? That'd be 445 votes for Beep, and that'd be a 62-38 advantage. Right? Again, whether or not he ends up then winning the total thing by 341 votes, which whatever amount of bots, if at all, were purchased in that time frame, it's not enough to make up for the normal, what appears to be normal voting lead that's taken, right? So Beep still wins, but if you bought bots, what a bunch of losers, because that means you never had the intention of playing it fair. And that just sucks if you did buy bots, especially because you already have the largest backing, and on top of it, you're going to buy bots, losers. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see on the next episode of Lauer After Hours to see what they say.
There is another competitor who has clearly used bots to win. And it's obvious, because he's the only one who's had this happen. It's the Brandon Betts guy. It's Cody. In the Sweet 16, he went up against Ryan. Ryan had a comfortable 10% lead. And look, I love numbers, as maybe you can tell with me giving all these various numbers. If I can look and break into something in the numbers, I'm going to do it. Like, if you've, that's just my personality. I love numbers. I love looking at it. I love breaking it down. I love analyzing numbers. So I'm just incessantly, while I'm on this, checking the competition. And the whole time I've been checking the competition. Every time I'm doing it, I'm going through the whole entire thread and I'm watching the votes come in. And there's only one person who I saw this happen with. And that's where if somebody got up to a comfortable lead, that was never reversed. No one at any point in this competition has been down for a long period of time by double digits and then come back and won by double digits. But it happened twice. Go to bed. Ryan is beating Brandon. And I'm checking because guess what? I'm sizing up the competition. Is this somebody that I'm going to have to eventually go against? Or is he going to get knocked out? That's why I'm checking. Go to bed late at night. Ryan's up 10%. I'm like, okay, this bet guy is going to be like knocked out of the race. And why am I concerned about him? Because he's one of the few people that the show talked about. And if the show talks about you, that gives you a little bit of juice. You think people that find that, like, congratulations, Mike's Hole, you got a little bit of the show juice, but you're going to need a lot more juice to get past the final 4. So, wake up in the morning, check the polls, and what do I see? Brandon is now demolishing Ryan. And again, this guy, he's like at Batard sign show guy. He has no social media following. He has all these posts and retweets, hardly any views, impressions. So I say that because there's nothing to indicate why did this guy make this gain up? Because again, if you have watched the polls, you also see you get a lot of votes at the beginning and then the rest of the votes trickle in at the end. I'm also looking at the numbers as I do this. Again, I like numbers. No one else has seen a sizable uptick in the poll voting. Most of the votes come at the beginning and then it's a lot slower the rest of the time. He's the only one who you wake up and you check the next morning, all of a sudden there's like double the amount of votes, right? So the dude clearly cheated to beat Ryan. And here's something that like is the show even aware that this happened? Because he then advanced to the Elite Eight. But was he supposed to? Because this is what happened with the Elite Eight. My video went on Friday. So I'm like, okay, my next competition between Beep is going to be on Sunday. Well, I'm surprised Saturday when I get the notification on Twitter and see what they posted me on Saturday. Why am I going Saturday? Well, you know who was supposed to go Saturday? It was the winner of the Brandon bets and Ryan. And when do they end up going? Sunday. So I'm like, did they flip that so they could talk about and discuss what they were going to do? Because when they do finally post this Brandon bets, guys, there's an error. It's Brandon's video, but it's Ryan's name to the voting. So what happened there? Did the show talk about it and like, but obviously they never corrected it either. And the show has yet to talk about March Sadness this week. Dan's out. But anyway, this guy, again, against Rich, he goes against Rich. Same thing happens. Rich gets up big, double-digit lead, comfortable lead. Then next morning you check it, he's now up by like 20%. So a bunch of bots came in again. And it's like, okay, is he going to advance? And now I think he faces Beep. And if he advances and uses bots again, like now what are you going to do? Basically, it's the cat's out of the bag. Either you've got to go back and do like a one-off between Rich and Ryan to advance them to face Beep. Because what you can't do at this point is Brandon's going to keep using bots. And if he uses bots, it's going to be even more obvious. And it's going to be now to an audience that they're going to definitely like talk about it and say, hey, he's using bots. They're going to be loud and vocal about it. It's not going to be, you know, Rich has a good following of like 6,000 or so, and cheaters never prosper. He quoted it saying shenanigans, but nothing's being said or done about it as far as I know. And what would be a really bad look is there's all this evidence of Brandon's already cheated 2 rounds and you did nothing to fix it. And if he cheats and beats Beep, then it looks really bad if you kick him out then. And you didn't kick him out earlier when it was already obvious this dude cheated to get past the Sweet 16 and he cheated to get past the Elite 8. And if he cheats to get into the championship, and if he at this point, it's a really bad look if you kick him out for Beep, someone who is a friend of the show, but you didn't kick him out for other people, even though he did the same thing to them. That's a really bad look. And either way, right? I guess the only thing if you're part of the Batard show crew that you're hoping for is you got to make sure this Brandon guy doesn't win. Plain and simple. Because if he wins, it's bad. You just ran a competition that basically, hey, we're going to have this competition with this cool prize. But guess what? If you spend a few bucks, because, you know, at this point, all Brandon's probably spent, he could have won both of those competitions spending $10 or less. He could beat, it does not cost a lot to buy Twitter poll votes. Especially that, which is another thing here. Like, the one thing that's a little bit disappointing is, you hear that, I get excited like, man, I could make some really good, fun, exciting videos and hopefully enough people like it that I get to win. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, with how it's set up, this was never about who could make the best video. It was always going to eventually come down to a popularity contest because, again, Lauer After Hours, they have the largest Twitter following and they're always going to vote for their people, which, you know, you understand it, you get it. But it's like, as someone who, you know, Rich, Ryan, myself, the guy Mike Song, there's a lot of people making good videos that like deserve to stand on the merit and be like, hey, this was a good video. Like for Beep and Will, they've also made excellent, great videos. Like Beep made a great video against me. Obviously I'm gonna be biased for like my own video, but Beep had a great impression and it was a classic show moment. Didn't address the prompt though. Didn't address the prompt at all. But now I'm getting sidetracked and talking about this all along. Anyway, to say, like, I can't help but be disappointed with how this has run out. You host this competition. What was done and talked about in terms of let's make sure this is a fair competition? Somebody cheated to get past the 2 rounds and you did nothing about it. So now, if you do something about it later, like, okay, you're only going to do it for the Lauer After Hours crew, but you're not going to fix it for the previous people, that's a bad look. And if Brandon wins it all, that's a bad look. You just held a competition where it's like, hey, like, what's the motivation for if you ever hold some sort of competition again for any fan to take this legitimately or try to just win it on the merits of their skill or ability and not just like buy something, right? One possible solution is they got to change up the voting, but I don't know, they're not going to do it. So that's just, they're disappointing in terms of, I mean, how the show has handled March Sadness has been disappointing because of this Brandon character. You should have caught the cheating, and it's not, I don't know what Rich or Ryan has done to contact the show about it. I don't even know if Ryan, like, it's clear Rich knew that the guy cheated because he commented underneath it, cheaters never prosper. I don't know if Ryan realized that the guy cheated to beat him, but you know, it just doesn't make sense. And one other thing I noticed, like, doing the threads also has in a way created an unfair advantage to the Lauer After Hours folks. Again, you guys have the largest following, and if this is a poll thing and a popularity contest, and you guys obviously have the pocket aces when it comes to that in your following, the only thing that going up against them you can help is that a lot of people will see and vote on the poll. Well, guess what? Not a lot of people are voting on the March Sadness polls. Not some of them get less than 200 votes. But you look at a regular Le Batard show poll question, those can get thousands of votes. Like a regular Le Batard show post has gotten way more. Like, I'm just going to pull it up right now and go to the Dan Le Batard show and look at a Twitter poll. The largest poll result was the competition between me and Beep with 1,252 votes. Again, you know, some of those are fraudulent because my accident. But again, never bought those with the intent. I never bought those with the intent to win the competition. If I wanted to win it, I would have bought the bots to win it, but I don't want to do it that way. Anyway, again, here's the most recent poll, 14 hours in. This one isn't even, it's like, when it comes to NCAA Final Fours, do you prefer chalk or Cinderellas? 1,473 votes. That's more votes than anybody has gotten in the March Sadness tournament. You look at, are you and your work friends actual friends? 2,258 votes, the most votes. Another poll, 2,000 votes. So all these, you see that? Way more votes than the March Madness thread, which it's just another advantage because if you're doing it as a thread, less people are going to see it. The people with the most social media following that can bring the most people to that are going to win. So somebody like, right, it's coming down to Beep or Will. And honestly, the question is Brandon gonna buy enough bots and time it out right to beat him? And if that happens, what's the show gonna do about it? Because there's just no way, like, maybe there's no way that they can beat those guys straight up with their following. That's just how it is. Unless the show actually like talks it up and like really hypes, like, oh, Mike makes a great video and says like Mike should win. Like they said, I think Mike will beat him, even though like I liked Adam's video way back when. Rambling, we're done. We're moving on. Hey, how about those torpedo bats? We're 7 or 8 games into the MLB season, and I've already watched parts of a baseball game. That's never happened because you got torpedo bats and home runs galore. We'll start with torpedo bats. What are my thoughts on the torpedo bats? Keep it, MLB. Keep it. You need the excitement. These guys cranking all these home runs. Love the torpedo bats. It seems like it's not against the rules, and baseball, you need all the help you can get. The torpedo bats seem like they've been a huge success in terms of like people are talking about baseball because of these bats. People are putting up runs, and people are saying it's because of these bats. I thought it was really informative to hear David Sampson talk a little bit about it because I don't know much about baseball, and I was like, man, this is going to take over the league. But it doesn't seem necessarily like it is because, at this point, if you're a professional, you've honed that skill so well, and swinging a torpedo bat is a different feel. A lot of people won't want to switch to a torpedo bat because it feels so different. But I don't know, maybe as time progresses, right, more and more people adapt that. Like over time, if nothing is done about the torpedo bat, you'd imagine if there is an actual advantage there that everybody's just going to start switching to the torpedo bat. Can you make an aluminum torpedo bat? That's a question right there. Ding. Torpedo dingers. Now, why else have I watched baseball? Ladies and gentlemen, you're Miami Marlins. You're a fan of the show. I watched a little bit of a Marlins game the other day. I got an alert on the MLB app, Marlins and Mets going into extra innings. Watch for free. So this whole entire season on MLB.tv, if a game goes into extra innings, blackout restrictions apply, you can watch the game for free. And every day there's an MLB game of the day. So a chance to watch a lot of free baseball if you have the MLB app. So I watched the extra innings because I was like, dang, these guys have already had 3 walk-offs in 6 games. Could they get a 4th in 7? They couldn't. Mets scored 2 in the 11th, and the Marlins only scored 1 in the bottom of the 11th. Still, it was exciting. Extra innings baseball is exciting. Starting that runner on second, like MLB baseball, you were onto something with that. Congratulations. Like if a game goes into extra innings, I might actually be incentivized to click on it again because what I saw of that little bit of both innings were entertaining. The Mets in the 10th almost scored a run. And then in the 11th, they scored it. They scored 2, and the Marlins actually it didn't feel like they were out of it because almost instantly they put 1 run up. And lastly, the last thing that's drawing your attention for baseball, the Dodgers. Like, man, is a dynasty or a super team a good thing for a sport? Because, again, it draws attention. People are talking about the Dodgers, and they are 8 and Ohtani hits that walk-off home run. Like, what Shohei Ohtani. Like, this guy, I just keep being impressed with him more and more because you're like, okay, he started out of this freak, like, pitching really well, hitting really well, and it just feels like he's getting better. He's already, like, I think he's had a couple home runs already in the 8 games. Like, seems like he's off to a great start to the season. He might be like pitching this year again. I don't know. But the little bit of Ohtani that I have seen and the Dodgers themselves, 8-0 start. Like if they're potentially chasing for the best record ever in baseball and then a repeat, you got to think that's good for baseball. So, hey, baseball's actually got to be feeling themselves a little bit, right? And then at the same time, Amin announced it. It's already the playoffs for the NBA. The playoffs are here for the NBA, even though it's not the playoffs because all the push for seedings and stuff. Like, it's and March Madness is wrapping up. This time right now. And even like, congrats. Usually you're not talking at all about baseball. It doesn't matter. But I'm actually excited about this is legitimately the first time I've ever been excited about a baseball season. And finally, the last thing for the show is a TV show recommendation. Show talks a lot of shows, and I recently started watching a show where I'm like, man, this show is great. It's only been 3 episodes so far, and every episode has been fantastic. I love how it's shot, and that's The Studio with Seth Rogen. Tremendous, tremendous show. I cannot recommend it enough in terms of another recommendation. Love Severance, big Severance fan there. Season 2 was great, but The Studio, it's a funny show, and part of that is because of how like well it's done. Like one of the episodes is called The Oneer, and it's about him going to a studio and they're trying to do like a one shot take of a video, and the sunlight is going down, and while he's there to view this oneer, the whole episode is shot like a one shot too. So they're like mimicking it. Like there's a point where they're talking, he's like, maybe you can stitch that together in editing, you can use like a whip cut. And she's like, we're not going to use a whip cut. Meanwhile, the way the camera is panning back and forth, it's like a whip cut is being used to stitch together that. Like we're not stitching things together. So that's like, you know, if you're someone who like really enjoys like analyzing and looking at how things are shot, like I really like The Studio because it's a really smart show. Like they get some laughs, not by like, you know, a traditional like comedy thing, but by like how they're doing film techniques. Like in another episode about a Ron Howard movie, there's a part of the movie that Ron Howard makes a movie, they love it, but then it gets to the end and they all hate the ending portion of the movie. And so the whole episode is about them thinking of a way to give Ron Howard a note of like, you need to cut this ending to your movie. And you know, they end the show essentially by then mimicking the ending of the movie that they saw and hated. And it's so funny to see those shots, because earlier you see similar shots and the characters reacting to being like, what is happening? I don't get this. Why is this happening? And then they end the show in the same style as the ending of the Ron Howard movie. It's a really smart, like fun show. It's really well done. It's kind of a little bit like Birdman in terms of like there's drums and like the shots feel long and lengthy, and things in every episode, like they're building every episode. Like there's just this constant sense of movement in the episode that's building to not a cliche, but building to a climax, right? And every episode has that climax. Like in the first, even in the first episode, like, oh man, I don't want to spoil it. I've already spoiled like a little bit, like too much of going into depth, but I really like the show, and I'm looking forward to what's happening. And that's all I've got for you this week. Go out, ladies and gentlemen. Vote in the March Sadness. Cast your vote.